What I'm about to tell you happened just 3 weeks ago, and I'm still trying to process it. My name is David Martinez. I'm 52 years old. And until recently, I thought my daughter Emma hated me. For 5 years, she refused to speak to me. She blocked my number, returned my letters unopened, and when she got engaged last year, I found out through Facebook like a stranger. But the letter that arrived the day after her wedding, it contained a truth so shocking that it destroyed everything I thought I knew about my family, my ex-wife, and the last 5 years of my life. By the end of this story, you'll understand why I'm sharing this with complete strangers on the internet instead of keeping it private. Because sometimes, the truth is so unbelievable that you need other people to help you believe it actually happened. Let me start from the beginning, and I promise you, the ending will shock you, just as much as it shocked me. 5 years ago, my wife Sarah asked for a divorce. After 18 years of marriage, she said she'd fallen out of love with me and wanted to start fresh. I was devastated, but I accepted it. What destroyed me was when my 15-year-old daughter Emma suddenly stopped talking to me completely. 1 day we were close. She was Daddy's little girl. We had inside jokes. She called me every day after school to tell me about her classes. The next day, she looked at me like I was a stranger. When I tried to ask her what was wrong, she said, and I'll never forget these words, "I know what you did, Dad. Mom told me everything. But here's the thing. I had no idea what I supposedly did." I begged Sarah to tell me what she'd said to Emma, but Sarah just shrugged and said, "Emma's old enough to make her own decisions about who she wants in her life." Can you imagine that? Your own child suddenly treating you like you're toxic, and nobody will tell you why. For 5 years, I tried everything. I sent Emma letters explaining that I didn't know what I'd done wrong, that I was sorry for whatever it was, that I loved her unconditionally. I sent birthday cards, Christmas gifts, graduation money. Everything came back marked, "Return to sender." I hired a family therapist, hoping Emma would agree to joint sessions. She refused. I reached out to her friends, her teachers, anyone who might help me understand what had happened. Everyone just said the same thing. Emma doesn't want to talk about her father. Last year, when Emma got engaged to her boyfriend Marcus, I found out through a mutual friend's Facebook post. I wasn't invited to the engagement party. I wasn't asked to walk her down the aisle. I wasn't even told the wedding date until I saw photos being posted in real time by relatives who felt sorry for me. And let me ask you something. Have you ever been excluded from one of the most important days of your child's life? Have you ever sat in your empty house, looking at wedding photos on social media, watching your daughter dance with her new father-in-law while you wonder what you did to deserve this punishment? That was my reality 3 weeks ago. Saturday, November 2nd, 2024. While Emma was getting married in what looked like a beautiful ceremony in Santa Barbara, I was sitting in my apartment in Phoenix, ordering Chinese takeout and trying not to cry into my lo mein. I went to bed that night thinking this was my life now, a father with no daughter, a man whose only child had written him off completely, and he didn't even know why. But Sunday morning, November 3rd, everything changed. I was drinking coffee and trying to distract myself by reading the news when I heard my mail slot clatter. The postal service doesn't deliver on Sundays, so I figured it was probably a flyer or some neighborhood notification. When I went to check, there was a single envelope on my floor. No postmark, no stamp. Just my name written in handwriting I didn't recognize. David Martinez, urgent, private. Inside was a letter that began, "Mr. Martinez, you don't know me, but I know what happened to your family. I'm Marcus's sister, and I was at Emma's wedding yesterday. There's something you need to know about why Emma has been avoiding you." My hands started shaking as I read that first paragraph. After 5 years of silence, someone was finally going to tell me what I'd supposedly done wrong. But what came next wasn't what I expected. The letter continued. "Yesterday, at the wedding reception, your ex-wife Sarah had too much to drink. During her mother of the bride speech, she said something that made my whole family uncomfortable. She said, and I'm quoting directly, "I'm so proud of Emma for having the strength to cut toxic people out of her life, even when those people are family. It takes courage to choose your own happiness over obligation." The weird part was how she kept looking at Emma when she said it, like she was expecting some kind of reaction. Emma looked uncomfortable and asked her mom to sit down. But Sarah kept going. Now I'm reading this letter, and my coffee is getting cold because my hands are shaking so badly I can barely hold the paper. After 5 years of wondering what I did wrong, I'm finally getting answers, but they're not making any sense. The letter went on. "Mr. Martinez, what I'm about to tell you might be hard to believe, but I think you deserve to know. During the wedding dinner, I was sitting next to Emma's cousin Lisa, who was visiting from out of state. Lisa seemed confused about the family dynamics, and she asked Emma directly, 'Why isn't your dad here?' Emma's response was strange. She said, 'My mom told me he cheated on her multiple times, and that he was abusive to both of us. She said he was trying to turn me against her, so I decided to cut contact for my own mental health.' I had to put the letter down and walk around my apartment for a few minutes. Cheated? Abusive? I had never been unfaithful to Sarah, not once in 18 years. And abusive? The worst fight Sarah and I ever had was about what color to paint the kitchen. But there was more. Lisa looked shocked and said, 'That's weird, because your dad calls my mom every few months asking if we've heard from you. He sounds heartbroken, not angry. And didn't he pay for your college even after the divorce?' Emma went completely silent. Then she asked, 'What do you mean he paid for my college?' 'My mom paid for my college.' Lisa said, 'No, Emma. Your dad has been sending my mom checks for your tuition, room and board, textbooks, everything. My mom handles some kind of education fund for you. She told me your dad insisted on paying everything, even though you weren't speaking to him. Are you starting to see what was happening here? Because I was starting to piece it together, and it was making me sick to my stomach." The letter continued. "Mr. Martinez." Emma looked like she'd been punched in the gut. She asked Lisa to explain exactly what she meant, and Lisa said, "Your dad set up an education fund when you were little. After the divorce, he transferred $180,000 into it to make sure you could go to any college you wanted. My mom administers it, but all the money came from your father." Emma immediately left the table and went outside. I followed her because she looked like she was about to have a panic attack. She was on the phone with someone, and I heard her say, "Mom, I need you to tell me the truth right now. Did Dad pay for my college, or did you?" Now, let me pause here and ask you something. If you found out that someone had been lying to you for 5 years about one of the most important relationships in your life, how would you react? Because what happened next is exactly what you'd expect from someone whose world just got turned upside down. The letter went on. I couldn't hear what Sarah said on the phone, but Emma's face went white. She said, "What do you mean you'll explain later? I want to know right now." Then she said, "Mom, did Dad ever cheat on you?" Another long pause. Then, "Was he ever abusive to us?" Another pause. Then Emma sat down on the ground and started crying. When she hung up, I asked if she was okay. She looked at me and said, "I think my mother has been lying to me for 5 years. Then she asked me something strange. She said, "Does your brother Marcus have a good relationship with your father?" I told her yes, that our dad is actually Marcus's best friend, and the best man at your wedding was supposed to be our dad, but he couldn't make it due to a work emergency. Emma started crying harder and said, "I haven't spoken to my father in 5 years because my mom told me he was a terrible person. But everyone here keeps talking about him like he's this loving, heartbroken man who just wants his daughter back." I had to stop reading again. Do you know what it's like to discover that your child has been fed lies about you for 5 years? That every birthday, every Christmas, every Father's Day that you spent alone was because someone was systematically destroying your relationship with your own daughter? But the letter wasn't finished. Mr. Martinez, Emma asked me to help her figure out what really happened. She said she needed to know the truth before her honeymoon, because if her mother had been lying about you, then she needed to apologize to you immediately. So I did something that might seem crazy. I called my aunt who works in family law and asked her how someone could find out the truth about old divorce cases. She told me that divorce records are public information, and that if Emma wanted to see the actual court documents from your divorce, she could access them online. We spent 2 hours that night, still in her wedding dress, going through public records. Mr. Martinez, I don't know what your ex-wife told Emma about the divorce, but the court documents tell a very different story. This is where my hands started, shaking so badly I almost couldn't read the rest. According to the official divorce decree, there was no mention of infidelity, abuse, or any kind of fault-based grounds. It was listed as an irreconcilable differences divorce. But more importantly, the financial arrangements show that you agreed to pay Emma's full college tuition, plus you waived your right to alimony even though Sarah had been a stay-at-home mom for 15 years. You also agreed to let Sarah keep the house and most of the assets. The court documents make you look like someone who was trying to do right by his family, not someone who was abusive or unfaithful. Emma read through everything twice. Then she looked at me and said, I think my mother destroyed my relationship with my father because she was angry about the divorce. And I've been punishing him for 5 years for things he never did. Now, let me ask you this. What would you do if you discovered that your child had been turned against you through a deliberate campaign of lies? Would you be angry? Would you be heartbroken? Would you want revenge against the person who stole 5 years of your relationship with your daughter? Because that's exactly where I was when I finished reading this letter. But there was still more. Mr. Martinez, Emma asked me to write this letter because she's afraid to contact you directly. She's worried that you hate her now, or that you've moved on with your life and don't want her back. She's also worried that you'll think she's terrible for believing her mother's lies without ever asking for your side of the story. She wanted me to tell you that she's sorry. She's sorry for 5 years of silence, for missing your calls, for returning your letters, for not being there when you needed her. She's sorry for letting you spend 5 years thinking you were a bad father when you were actually a great father who got caught in the middle of someone else's anger. She also wanted me to tell you that she loves you. She said she never stopped loving you, but she was 15 when this started, and she trusted her mother to tell her the truth about her own family. Emma asked me to give you her new phone number and address. She knows you might not want to see her after everything that happened, but she hopes you'll give her a chance to apologize in person and try to rebuild the relationship she threw away. I had to put the letter down because I was crying too hard to read the rest. Do you have children? Have you ever imagined what it would feel like to get your child back after thinking they were lost forever? Because that's what this felt like. Like someone had just told me my daughter wasn't dead. She'd just been kidnapped for 5 years, and now she was ready to come home. The letter ended with Emma's phone number, her new address, and one final paragraph. Mr. Martinez, Emma asked me to tell you one more thing. She said the hardest part about her wedding day wasn't that you weren't there. The hardest part was realizing that she had spent 5 years hurting someone who loved her unconditionally, and that if she had just asked you for your side of the story, none of this would have happened. She hopes you can forgive her. She hopes it's not too late to have a relationship with you, and she hopes that someday you might even be able to forgive her mother, because Emma says holding on to anger will just create more broken relationships, and your family has been broken long. Enough. I sat in my kitchen for 2 hours, just holding that letter and trying to process what I'd learned. My ex-wife had systematically poisoned my relationship with my daughter. She'd lied about abuse that never happened, infidelity that never occurred, and manipulation that was actually coming from her, not me. She'd stolen 5 years of my relationship with Emma, 5 years of being there for my daughter during some of the most important moments of her life. But here's the thing that surprised me about my own reaction. I wasn't angry. I was heartbroken for Emma. Think about it from her perspective. She was 15 years old when her parents got divorced. Her mother, the person she trusted most in the world, told her that her father was dangerous and toxic. Of course she believed. What 15-year-old wouldn't believe their mother? And then imagine finding out 5 years later, on your wedding day, that everything you believed about your family was a lie, that you'd been cruel to someone who loved you, that you'd missed 5 years of relationship with your father because someone else's anger had poisoned your mind. Emma wasn't the villain in this story. She was a victim too. So I did something that might surprise you. I picked up my phone, and I called the number Emma had given me. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been sitting by the phone waiting. "Dad?" Her voice was small and scared, like she was 15 again. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, and I started crying again. "I got your letter. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I believed Mom without ever asking for your side, and I hurt you for 5 years, and I don't know how to fix it." "Emma, you don't need to fix anything. You were a kid who trusted her mother. That's not your fault." "But I missed everything. I missed your birthdays. I missed holidays. I missed 5 years of talking to you and being your daughter." "Sweetheart, you're still my daughter. You've always been my daughter. That never changed, not for one single day." We talked for 3 hours. She told me about college, about meeting Marcus, about her career, about all the things I'd missed. I told her about my life, about how much I'd missed her, about how proud I was of the woman she'd become even though I hadn't been there to see it. And then she asked me the question I'd been dreading. "Dad, what do we do about Mom?" Here's what I told her, and I want you to think about this because it's important. "Emma, your mother did something terrible. She stole 5 years from both of us because she was angry about our divorce. But if we let that anger consume us now, then she'll have stolen even more time. We can't get back the last 5 years, but we can make sure we don't lose any more." Emma started crying again. "Does that mean you forgive her?" "I'm working on it," I told her. "Not for her sake, but for ours. Because carrying around hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Now let me ask you this. Do you think I made the right choice? Should I have been angrier? Should I have demanded justice for what Sarah did to our family? Because here's what happened next, and this might surprise you. 2 days after Emma and I reconnected, Sarah called me. "David," she said, "Emma told me you two are talking again." "Yes, we are. I suppose she told you everything." "She told me what she discovered. That you lied to her about our marriage, about the divorce, about who I am as a person." There was a long silence. Then Sarah said something that shocked me. "You're right. I did lie to her. And I've been feeling guilty about it for 5 years." "Then why did you do it?" "Because I was angry. I was angry that you seemed fine after our divorce while I was struggling. I was angry that you were still close with Emma while I was the one dealing with her teenage attitude every day. I was angry that everyone said you were being so generous with the divorce settlement when I felt like 18 years of my life had just been thrown away. So you decided to take Emma away from me. I decided to make you hurt the way I was hurting. And I told myself that Emma was better off without the influence of men in her life, that I could raise her to be independent and strong. Sarah, she's been miserable. She thought she'd lost her father because he was a terrible person. Do you have any idea what that did to her?" "I know," Sarah said, and I could hear her crying. "I know I destroyed something beautiful between you and Emma, and I know I can't fix it. But David, I need to ask you something." "What?" "Emma wants all 3 of us to go to family therapy together. She wants to try to rebuild our family relationships, including her relationship with me. Would you be willing to do that? And here's where I had to make a choice that would define the rest of our lives. I could have said no. I could have told Sarah that she'd forfeited her right to be part of our family reconciliation when she chose to lie for 5 years. I could have focused on rebuilding my relationship with Emma while leaving Sarah to deal with the consequences of her actions alone. But then I thought about Emma, who had just gotten married and was starting her own family. Did I want her to have to choose between her parents for the rest of her life? Did I want family gatherings to be complicated by old grudges and unfinished business? Sarah, I said, I'll go to therapy on one condition. What's that? You have to tell Emma the complete truth. Not just that you lied, but why you lied. She deserves to understand what happened so she can make informed decisions about how to move forward. David, if I tell her everything, she might never forgive me. And if you don't tell her everything, you'll never deserve her forgiveness. Sarah agreed. So here we are, 3 weeks later. Emma and I are talking every day, making up for lost time. We've had coffee twice, and she's coming to visit me in Phoenix next weekend. She wants me to meet Marcus properly, and she wants to introduce me to her in-laws as her father, not as the man she used to have a complicated relationship with. Sarah and I have been to 2 therapy sessions together with Emma. Sarah has admitted to lying about the abuse, the infidelity, and my supposed attempts to manipulate Emma. She's explained that she was operating from a place of hurt and anger, and that she convinced herself she was protecting Emma when she was actually using Emma as a weapon against me. Emma has been incredibly mature about the whole situation. She's told both of us that she forgives us, me for not fighting harder to maintain our relationship, and Sarah for lying to her. But she's also made it clear that rebuilding trust is going to take time, and that she needs both of us to commit to honesty and open communication going forward. And you know what? We're getting there. It's awkward sometimes, and there are moments when old hurts bubble up, but we're talking. We're working through it. We're rebuilding something that was broken. But I want to tell you about something that happened in our last therapy session that really struck me. The therapist asked Emma, "What do you think would have happened if your parents had handled their divorce differently 5 years ago?" Emma thought about it for a minute, then said, "I think I would have had relationships with both my parents this whole time. I think I would have felt more secure, more loved, more supported. I think I would have brought Dad to my wedding, and he would have walked me down the aisle, and both my parents would have been there to celebrate with me." Then she looked at both of us and said, "But I also think that if this hadn't happened, I wouldn't have learned some important things about family, about forgiveness, and about how much damage we can do to people we love when we act from anger instead of love. I wouldn't trade having my dad back for anything in the world, but I also learned that I can survive losing someone I love, that I can be strong enough to admit when I'm wrong, and that it's never too late to fix something that's broken if everyone involved is willing to do the work." Now let me ask you this. Have you ever had a relationship in your life that was damaged by anger, pride, or misunderstanding? Have you ever lost someone you loved because of things that were said or done in the heat of emotion? Because here's what I learned from this experience. It's never too late to try to fix what's broken. It's never too late to apologize, to forgive, or to choose love over anger. Emma could have decided that I wasn't worth the effort after 5 years. I could have decided that Sarah didn't deserve forgiveness after what she did to our family. Sarah could have decided to keep lying rather than face the consequences of her actions. But we all made the choice to try. We all decided that our family was worth fighting for, even after it had been broken for so long. And you know what? 3 weeks later, we're not perfect, but we're together. Emma calls me every day. Sarah and I can have civil conversations about our daughter's happiness. Emma is planning to bring Marcus to Phoenix for Christmas so we can all spend the holiday together. Is it the family we would have had if none of this had happened? No. We lost 5 years that we can never get back. But it's the family we have now, and we're choosing to make it work. So here's my message to anyone watching this who has a broken relationship in their life. It's worth trying to fix. It's worth swallowing your pride, admitting your mistakes, and choosing love over anger. It's worth picking up the phone and making that call you've been avoiding. It's worth writing that letter you've been putting off. It's worth having that difficult conversation you've been dreading. Because 5 years from now, you might look back and realize that the relationship you thought was dead was actually just waiting for someone to be brave enough to try to save it. And if you're someone who's been hurt by a family member, who's been lied to or betrayed or abandoned, I see you. I understand your pain. And I want you to know that healing is possible. But it requires something from you too. It requires the courage to be vulnerable enough to try again. The strength to forgive without forgetting. The wisdom to set boundaries while keeping your heart open. It's not easy. Some days it feels impossible. But the alternative, staying angry, staying hurt, staying disconnected, isn't really living. It's just surviving. Emma, Sarah, and I are choosing to live. We're choosing to rebuild. We're choosing each other, even after everything that happened. And if we can do it, so can you. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone you've lost touch with, if it made you think about a relationship in your own life, that might be worth saving. I want you to do something for me. I want you to share this video with someone who needs to hear it. I want you to leave a comment telling me about a relationship in your life that you'd like to rebuild. And I want you to consider taking that first step, making that first move, sending that first message. Because somewhere out there is someone who misses you just as much as you miss them. Someone who would answer the phone if you called. Someone who would read the letter if you sent it. Someone who would forgive you if you asked. The letter that changed my life came from a stranger who cared enough to tell me the truth. Maybe this video can be that letter for someone else. Maybe today is the day you get your family back too. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for caring about families that get broken and the people who work to put them back together. And remember, it's never too late to come home. Have you ever lost a relationship because of lies someone else told? What would you do if you discovered your child had been turned against you for years? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe if stories about family, forgiveness, and second chances mean something to you. Your support helps me share more stories, like this one.